but opened a door to do what? To declare the mystery of Christ. Wow. Is there no better story to tell? Is there no greater accomplishment in the entire world, the universe, of what God would have done with his creation except to talk about what he has done for people in Jesus Christ? And then he says, but how else am I going to pray? I'm going to pray that I might make it clear, that it can be heard. Some of this is a spiritual warfare issue, because what does the devil want to do? He wants to throw stuff in the way. He wants to throw stuff in the path so that the gospel is not clear. So there's things people trip over. One of the things I'm coming to understand more and more is that our witness and our mission as the church is not always about what we need to do, but sometimes it's about what we need to remove that's in the way of what God is trying to accomplish. And sometimes it's just, how we talk with one another, and we're not bringing that respect and that honor even into those conversations with our unbelievers. Because I need to walk in wisdom toward outsiders. This is a great line that Paul's saying. I mean, where's Paul? Paul's in prison, folks. And Paul, he apparently believes that he always is going to have an opportunity to share the gospel, even when he's chained to the wall. I don't think we go into our days believing always that there's going to be an opportunity to share the gospel. I think we sometimes just trip over it. But what if we started every day, which we say, Lord, when you open the door, help me to see it and walk through it boldly, confidently. Help me to see it. Help me to notice it. Maybe I need to go into my day with my eyes open a little bit more in order to see these things that God would want for me. And how's my speech going to be done? It's going to be done graciously. Do you see there? That's back to that respect and honor. That's not back to no hate signs. That's understanding that every single person is a unique creation of God. Doesn't mean that they're his child yet, but the respect we need to bring is that they are a unique creation loved by him for whom Jesus died. See, our theology says that we believe that Jesus died for everybody. Not just those who believe in him, but even for those who reject him. And so our heart and our love and our commitment needs to reflect that, so that we would know how we ought to answer each person. You see the uniqueness of it? Because what I'd share with you and what I'd share with you and the story that we'd talk about, it's going to be different person to person. But you know what I can always start with? The Christ in me. And what my story is and what my account is and what yours is, that we might be able to share that with the world. How about this one? When he saw the crowd, he had compassion for them. My friends, I think that most of our witnessing needs to begin with us having the same heart that Jesus does for lost people. I'm not sure we're all in there. I think a lot of us look at this and go, this is that passage where Jesus says, we need more pastors. If you think this is about Jesus saying you need more pastors, this is not what it's saying. The reference of his talking about sheep without a shepherd is about what it means for people to be lost. What does he ask for? Laborers, workers in the vineyard, in this field where the harvest is ready. And you know what, friends? This is everybody. He calls all of us. From the moment of your baptism, as Luther would say, you were ordained in this role of priest to proclaim Christ to the world. We believe that. We believe in the priesthood of all believers. That's important. And we need to celebrate that. We need to hold on to that. And then we need to act on that. Now, along the way, do we need pastors and directors of Christian education and directors of music and on, and teachers and educators? Of course. And God raises those up out of the priesthood of all believers. You realize that every pastor you know is first part of the priesthood before he's a pastor. So this is a call for all of us. So don't just think when you see this out of Matthew 9 and go, I'm glad God said that about pastors. Because it's their job. No, it's not. It's what we do together, all of us. Okay? Now, I'm going to shift gears because I'm not using this microphone. I'm taking this thing off my ear because all I'm going to do is keep it from falling. I'm going to stick it in my pocket. Okay, Jonathan? Thank you. Between glasses and hearing aids, there's no room up there for it anyway. My dad always said to me, my dad's 88, lives up in Sacramento. I'm a Californian, born and raised. All my ministry in California, 35 years plus now as a pastor. And my dad would always say, getting old's not for wimps. And I'm starting to understand it a little bit as we go forward. Radical changes on the mission field. This is something that I want us to pause on for a minute too. Even as we consider what the scriptures are saying to us, what is the world saying to us? What is this creation that's in front of us saying to us in how we need to advance with the gospel? And one of the reasons why we've called this conference, It Takes All Kinds. This is a phrase that I tried to coin when I first came into office, that it takes all kinds of churches to reach all kinds of people. And that we have diversity of congregations in the Pacific Southwest District because we have diversity of contexts. We can't all do the same thing because the people in our pond, as fishers of men, right, are different from place to place. And so we need to celebrate and understand the uniquenesses and how it is that we need to have all kinds of churches. Because it takes that to reach all kinds of people. Now, it takes all kinds of witnesses to reach all kinds of people. Because if you look at that person next to you, I want you to say to them, you can't reach people I can reach. Come on, just say that to each other. You can't reach people I can reach. You can't. Because God has written your story in such a way that there's someone that you're going to connect with that only you could connect with. It is the uniqueness of our context that every single one of us have and understand. Now, I want to paint some of this picture about what the world is saying to us. And first of all, let's just kind of pull ourselves up straight and kind of own this one, okay? We have been functioning as the Church of the Global North. We're the blue. You see us up there? For a long time, and that's what we call it. We're Church of the Global North. Then there's the Church of the Global, South, right? It's written up there. It's not hard to figure out. Church of the Global North, Church of the Global South. Church of the Global North, we have seen ourselves as the senders, the goers, the missionaries, and the rest of the world, man, do they need what we got. Hey, you know what, folks? They've got it, and there's more of them now than there are of us. We are the third largest mission field in the world behind China and India. The United States. One of the largest mission sending countries in the world is South Korea. You know where they're sending a lot of their missionaries? To the United States. And we think we're a Christian nation. We're going to look a little bit more at that. We have to change our views and our thinking at our core. It's one of the things that for the last 15, 16 months now, I have been traveling our district. I've been blessed many months to be 3 weeks on the road, learning, sitting, listening to people. And the thing that I've been hearing is some frustration of people not knowing quite how to continue to function as the church in what they think is a churched culture when they're really placed in a culture that's not churched anymore. And some would even suggest that we're about 10, 20 years behind Europe, which is now kind of turned enough that some are calling them pre-Christians, because there seems to be some start and some movement and some revival and renewal that's happening in some places in Europe. But we're not there yet. We're still got to get our heads around the fact that we're not necessarily who we think we are. In light of this map, I just want to point out to you that we, the speakers today put together a resource list. It's a stapled package. You don't need to look at it now, but it's a bunch of books and references, some podcasts, some even TV shows, some things that are there that we just kind of felt we'd want to give to you that could help support some of the things we're going to talk about today. And one of those things is a book by Philip Jenkins. And if you have never read The Next Christendom, I invite you to read it. It's a book that I try to read once a year because it reminds me of how radically things have changed and how we need to have different perspectives. Here's just a piece I'll throw in on this. Our nation today is so worked up over immigration realities. Can I just take that off of a political landscape and say, what might God be doing? Because what's God's role and purpose? He wants all to be saved and to come to the knowledge of Christ. And if He's going to move people around for the purpose of people hearing the gospel, why do I want to be in the way of that? Now, see, that's not a political statement. That's the work of our God. There is always, as things are happening in the physical realities, a supernatural peace that God is doing. Read through the Psalms. Kings make their plans, God laughs. Because He's God. And He's God alone, right? Here's the next one I want you to see. Look at the changes in the globe. It's a little hard to see, but I pull this up because it gives a 100-year comparison. 1910 on the left. America's 27.1. Americas are all the Americas. We're so self-focused, we think the Americas are us, right? The United States. But it's all the Americas, okay, all the way down. Europe, 66.3% of Christians. Sub-Saharan Africa, 1.4%. Look at the changes in 100 years. The Americas, 36.8. Is that because the church is growing in the United States? Nope. It's because the church is growing in Latin America. Look where Europe is. From 66% to 25% in 100 years. Sub-Saharan Africa, it was 1.4 100 years ago. Look where it is today, 23.6%. Some of the fastest growing churches in the world are in Africa. Do you know one of the fastest growing Lutheran churches in the world today is in Sri Lanka? Let that mess up your mind a little bit, right? Amazing. Asia Pacific, 13.1. Asia Pacific up there on the other side was 4.5. Things are changing, things are shifting, and it's very, very important that we're aware of these things. And this is one of the reasons why we brought up our friends today who come with different understandings of the church and diversity and perspective. Because we need to hear it and we need to learn from them. I believe with all my heart we need to be listening to the Church of the Global South and the Church of the Global North today so that we can humbly learn from them and not always talk down to them because we think we're the experts. We need to be real careful about that because we have so much to learn together. Look at this one. World population is going to increase by 32% between now and this 45-year period we're 4 years in, and 2060. Number of Christians is expected to rise by 34%. The number of Muslims, Nader, is how much? 70%, which is going to change the balance of the world religions so that by 2060, 32% will be Christian, 31% will be Muslim, and then the rest are others, whatever that is. What do you think we ought to be doing? Preparing, learning, and listening to guys like this guy. Nader Hanna, who you're going to hear from later. You see, we need to know and understand that God has put people in our places and in our churches and in our districts so that we can see them as these incredible resources of the gospel. How about this one? We know this. We see it in our churches, right? In the U.S., a smaller share of adults identify as Christians, while religious nuns, not N-U-Ns, but religious nuns, people who have nothing, they have grown. Look at the difference. 78% were self-identified as Christians, and this is from 2007 to 2019, And you see how it's dropped to 65%. Here's the next of the slides, which shows you the other direction, which shows just the growth of the nuns. From 16% in 2007 to 26% of our population in 1819. Our youngest son, Tim, he's 28. He has a very dear girlfriend. Her name's Haley. They've been dating together about 3 years. We're praying that this is the one. Matter of fact, we've threatened him that if they ever break up, we're keeping her, and he gets to leave, right? Haley grew up in a family that just had nothing. She's not against the gospel. She doesn't hate Jesus. She's not even a self-proclaimed atheist. She got nothing. She had no exposure. Now, we Lutherans kind of go, how's that possible? We baptize babies as soon as we can get them out the door. She's got nothing. But last May, Memorial Day weekend, I had the privilege of baptizing Haley. You see, it's there, but it doesn't mean a door is closed. What did the Apostle Paul tell us to do? Pray that the door would be open. Open. How about this? This is just a map, and I just show it up here. You can't see much detail, but you can see the color and the darkness of the colors, which is the intensity of racial diversity, cultural diversity. Just let that sit for a second. Now, if you look through this room, we have some diversity. Yay, praise God. But we have been around a lot of Lutheran congregations in the last year and a half. And that's not necessarily us, but it's sure our world. So what does that say we need to do? In order for us to know how to answer, in order for us to have respect and honor of other people, we need to be learning and understanding about other cultures. It's one of the reasons you're going to hear from Stella and from Carlos later. The question becomes, and this is one of my things I've said for years, is this question: who are the fish in our pond? Jesus says, let's go fishing. Right? His resurrection appearances. One thing, the disciples went out and they went fishing. Jesus said, yeah, let's do this purposefully. Because they caught nothing when they were just out there killing time because they didn't know what to do. Now Jesus had come and gone. And now it was this focus of, let's go fishing. Who are the fish in your pond? Have you done the study to understand your community? Have you exegeted? We like to use that word in theology and Bible study. But have you exegeted, have you dug in and tried to really grasp and understand what it is, your context is, so that God would say to you, what are you going to do here? And how are you going to be about connecting people to Jesus? Look at that diversity. Here's another piece that we have to be aware of. And can I just pull up my district president pastor hat for a second? Gang, one of the things I'm really worried about is that the Christian church in America today has begun to equate conservative biblical belief with conservative politics. Stop it. That is not what our God would want. Remember the things I said earlier? That so much about witnessing and mission is about what we remove so that stuff's not in the way, as well as to put it forward. Now, am I talking about quit believing in pro-life? No. Do you understand what I'm saying? But there's an awful lot of the church today that proclaims Christ as if they're only talking to a Republican audience. Go into our urban centers. Do you think it's true there? No. There are people that I know in the congregation that I most recently served in Costa Mesa. Whenever people in the church started talking about politics, they left the room because they were Democrats and they believed in Jesus and loved Him. And they just wouldn't get in that conversation because there was too much conflict. Did you know David Kinnaman from Barna Group tells us this, and he is actually blessing us in the Pacific Southwest District as he's asking us to become a laboratory for their work with the Barna Group. David says that the group in the United States today that is walking away from the church the fastest are the Democrats, because they believe that Christianity is becoming the religion of Republicans. We need to remove the boundaries. We need to remove the barriers. Does it mean you need to quit believing what you believe and teach and confess? No, that's not what I'm talking about. But the honor and the respect has got to go across the board, and our nation doesn't do a very good job with that when it comes to politics, does it? May the church not get caught up in that. But why do I show this? Because it does show that within the California area, we have more liberal perspective on issues and realities in our world. And if we're going to be engaged in mission, we got to know this is true. And it ought to sensitize us on how we go about our engagement. So don't be afraid. We got to engage. You see, when things change around us, when the world starts moving and we start getting concerned over it, we find ourselves fretting, and we get fearful. And because when we're fearful and we think change is coming, we try to establish control. And sometimes control is protecting myself and isolating myself rather than engaging more fully. One of the things that's important that I want you to see, and I'm about out of time because I'm going to kind of move forward through this a little bit. Is this. One of my images that I pray the church will become today comes out of 9/11. And you say, well, what good could come out of 9/11? This phrase. When everybody else ran out of the building, the first responders ran in. Would you pray with me that becomes the church? Instead of us standing on the sidelines saying, you know, we've been marginalized, we've been pushed to the side, we're not the center of communities anymore, people don't want to listen to us and pay attention to us, and so we can stand over there in our little holy huddle and say, oh my gosh, I hope they don't infect us. Or we can say, we're running back in. Because this incredible world that our God has created, for whom Jesus died to redeem all of it, needs to hear the message of Christ. And you know what? We Lutherans say that we've got a pretty good handle on an understanding of our theology and what we believe and what we teach and what we confess and our understanding of the gift of grace. Well, it's time to give some grace. And it's time to engage without hesitation. Many years ago, when I first went to China, I've been in and out of China over about 24, 25 times in the last 15 years. I stood at the grave of Robert Morrison, the first Protestant missionary in China. It's in Macau, in a little Anglican church there. And you stand out in the back in the cemetery and you can see how young people were when they died. These missionaries that came. And one of the things that I know about Robert Morrison was this, that when Robert Morrison packed his belongings in order to go to the mission field, do you know what he packed them in? His coffin. My friends, that's the commitment. That's the compelling vision that we need to be as the church today. It's time for us to stop being comfortable. Because when we're comfortable, we don't want to leave our comfort. It's time for us to engage at a place where maybe we have something to lose. Maybe we have something to risk. And you know what, friends? It's coming at us faster than maybe we thought. But what if the people of the Pacific Southwest District said, we're running in. And by the way, I've packed my belongings in my coffin because I'm all in. You see, we have a God who has promised us, Matthew 28, that I am with you always. Not just sometimes. Always. The power of His Spirit, the Word that nourishes us, the sacraments that nourish us and proclaim to us again and again our forgiveness in Christ, and unites us to become this army that God needs for the sake of the world. Because it takes all kinds. It takes all kinds of people to reach all kinds of people. It takes all kinds of churches to reach all kinds of churches. And I invite you to pray with me for that. Because this stuff matters. It matters a lot.